Epic. A long time ago, there was only the spirit realm, which was beyond the mortal and finite concept of time and space. The spirit realm was a place of everlasting light. The three factions governing the spirit realm were love, glory, and eternal life. They were the law long before the foundation and conception of the physical living realm. The creator of all things and moments was soon to become known by his own creations as the one from beyond. His marvelous light was the source of any and all things. It flowed and hovered. Nothing was untouched by his light. He was everything and everywhere. The light and subtle whispering wind of the Creator had its own name. It was known only as the Essence. The Essence was its own totality. Nothing was before it. Nothing was beyond it but the Creator himself. In the realm of eternal life there was no need for the law of time. It serves no purpose. Time only gained its power through death. Death only gained his power through sin. There was no sin in the holy air of the One. From his light he created one, a companion. The inner contents of the One began to shift and shake until a loud deep humming sound pierced through the essence, and out of his mouth poured the Anon. He created one who shined holy light with him. This being was created in the perfect image of eternal perfection and was the pinnacle of praise and glory unto the Father. The Anon bowed in everlasting loyalty before spreading his massive white and gold wings, showing the fullest of his epic beauty. The essence around him ignited into a dark blue color, and with one flap of his mighty wings he took flight in every direction and in no direction, all in the same moment. The factions of positional directions are irrelevant in the spirit realm, where the eyes of God are in every place. The Anon saturated the essence with love and glory even more than what was already in existence. Colors and shapes, sounds and lightnings danced in every place the Anon flowed. In another brilliant flash of light, the Creator then created many heavenly creatures, beings in various shapes and sizes, all created with a singular purpose but with a willing heart to worship and serve their Master. The essence of the kingdom of heaven spread from everlasting to everlasting. It was all that existed until the One from beyond created the darkness. In this realm, the governing factions of the darkness were in opposition to those of the light. In the darkness there was no love, glory, or eternal life. There was only space, time, and death in this realm. Simply put, everything created in the darkness was created to eventually die. But even the power of death birthed life anew. Within the darkness he set in place the physical realm, complete with hundreds of billions of galaxies. Each galaxy was a massive spinning disk cloud of dust and energy that surrounded a great void that contained hundreds of trillions of stars. Revolving around most stars are planet systems. Some of these planets were blessed with the very breath of God himself, thus the possibility of life in its infinite shapes and forms. However, it was the darkness that brought corruption and chaos to the physical realm. It was the darkness was its own living force of death. The power of the darkness eventually crossed over into the spirit realm, even into the realm of God himself. For this reason, a motion of order had to be set in place in both the spirit and physical realms. As the new power of time grew, there were many changes, great and small. Energies of creation were expanding out into the darkness in every direction. On the planetary systems graced with the breath of God, the lands were young but diseased from the stench of the fallen ones. The Black Third, as they preferred to be called, were the losers of the great angelic war in God's holy place. Consumed by the darkness, they represented a third of the entire heavenly host. The number of angels that were cast out of heaven is as the number grains of sand times the number of stars in the sky, cast down in uncountable numbers upon the physical realm. The black angels started a reign of evil and terror that would cover the 12 corners of reality. They dwell in both the spirit and physical realm. The Great Angelic War is the current single most epic event in the history of time. It is also the greatest act of betrayal ever. The leader of the Black Third is none other than the former Anon Archangel Lucifer. Anon means first one, or the original companion of God. Once unimaginably beautiful, his glory covered the throne of the One from beyond. He wasn't just a sight to behold. He was the vision and sonic epitome of perfection. The sounds and lights that emanated from his being could change the atmosphere of the holy realm. He was eternal light and divine sound. His voice was that of living waters and winds dancing in the midst of a great eternal flame. When he spread his wings apart, his entire being began to worship. Instead of connecting to an instrument to perform like the other angels with a harp, horn or a drum, Lucifer was a living harp and drum. He was a living organ and horn. He was the living personification of every instrument of praise. All instruments were created in him and for him and were him. When he danced in God's presence, he was his own orchestra. In front of the holy mountain of God was the sea of glass, and the angelic host would gather here in the sight of God to watch Lucifer in his grand display of worship. They marveled at his awesomeness. There was no feat beyond him. There was no limit to his beauty. Would fly high into the essence with one flap of his gigantic wings and explode into light and sound. His light had a sound and his sound had its light. He was the only creature in all of existence that could fly above all of the crowns of the Almighty. Diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and jasper covered him from crown to feet. His face was perfect in every way, and when he was in worship his face would shine so bright that his features could no longer be seen. His Anon crown rested slightly above the brilliant white flame that was atop of his head. The crown was made from a precious metal not found anywhere in the cosmos. The crown was created from nothing for Lucifer. It too was also covered completely in jewels. It was said to be the most precious jewel that wasn't on the head of the Father. He was the only being in the kingdom who wore a crown besides the Father and Son. The angelic host all emits their own personal white light, but none however were as bright as Lucifer, for his light covered the throne of the Almighty. Lucifer was the only other being in heaven that the angels bowed to. Lucifer was once part of the high angelic trinity with his brothers Michael and Gabriel. These three beacons of power governed the heavenly host, answering only to the one from beyond, their Father. It is written that before the great war that iniquity was found in Lucifer. More so it was noticed in him because of his high position. The original harbor of evil was his now general and right hand. The cherubim known as Nod was the first to question why. Why must we serve? Why must we watch over the actions of men? Is there more to this existence? All of these questions filled Nod with doubt, and in the heavenly essence of time that turned into evil thoughts toward his creator. As a mid-level cherubim he was in no position to even dwell on rebelling against the Almighty. He was also the keeper of the keys of death, which was a transition or doorway from the physical realm to the spiritual. The time spent saturated in the realm of darkness had somewhat poisoned Nod. Nod felt that if he could convince the Trinity to turn, then perhaps all three of them together would have the power to overthrow the Father and give them control over all things. Then they would shape reality to their wishes and likeness. The attempts to plant seeds of deception in Michael and Gabriel proved to be an epic failure. He finally gave up and regarded them as clearly blind in devotion to the Father. After much thought, Nod believes that Lucifer alone may be the one to lead the revolution because of his closeness to the Father. Nod decided to play on Lucifer's own strengths to turn him. For all of Lucifer's beauty and power, and despite being the oldest of all angels, he wasn't very crafty. His job description was very clear. Nod doubted that Lucifer had even been to realm of time, but knew if he could somehow unlock something within him that Lucifer's power and flair may be enough. So the plan was set and Nod executed it well. Every free space in the essence he was in Lucifer's ear telling how great he was. It began to stir quite a commotion in the heavens, and soon more angels joined in actually giving praise to another in God's kingdom. Eventually Lucifer began to turn. He was used to the respect shown to him as the Anon, but he wasn't used to being the one getting praised and started to enjoy the attention. After all, God created him to be like himself. Of course the one from beyond was aware of this, but he chose to sit and let things run its course because after all, nothing is above or beyond him. After about a millennia Earth time, Nod had successfully corrupted Lucifer and the master plan is being worked on. Lucifer is now full of vanity, reveling in the beauty and power of himself. Lucifer first wanted undisputed rule over the lower earth realms, but Nod and the others beckoned him to want more, telling him that he is most beautiful and above all others. Lucifer was finally convinced that the holy mountain should be his alone to abide on. He considered it for a while and finally made up his mind while in mid-worship. He convinces himself that God feeds on worship. Without worship God loses power and thus would eventually grow weak enough to overthrow. He figured that maybe if he can deflect or transfer the worship to himself instead, then he will not only be as God, but he would become God. He became jealous that God had even created life in the physical realm, life that would eventually find their way back to him, thus giving him more worship to feed on. He was confident that the uncountable number of souls in the dark physical universe wouldn't possibly be able to duplicate half of what he could in 1 Earth second. The life souls may have been made a little lower than the angels, but the angelic host were a lot lower than he himself. For he alone is the Anon. No feat was beyond him. Why should he not be worshipped? Lucifer boasted in his own greatness and shared his thoughts with Nod. He holds one final meeting with the now dubbed Black Third via Mind Link. He tells his angels not to fear and to have great courage. The plan was to strike hard and fast and crush all that opposed his will. The instructions of the great confrontation are set. Now, all of heaven braces for the coming chaos. The tension is thick within the essence. All of reality hangs in the balance. The chronicles of the great angelic war and history of the death of the First World was lost for many millennia. Until now,